Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are advised that this film contains images of people who have passed.
Of all the objects on display in the Museum of the Great Southern, perhaps the most unexpected artifact is an American football. A football whose story starts in Honolulu in December 1941 when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States Navy soon decided to establish submarine bases to target Japanese military and commercial shipping. Fremantle was one of the ports selected, and it soon became America's second largest submarine base, ranking only behind Pearl Harbor.
But by about April 1942, the Japanese were advancing so quickly that they decided that Fremantle could be under threat. So they thought they would relocate the submarine base from Fremantle to their next nearest harbour, heading south. So they moved the whole submarine base from Fremantle to Albany.
During the next 6 months, 31 submarines would visit Albany along with the submarine tenders Holland and Peleus. The submarines were not the first American fleet to visit Albany. In 1908, the Great White Fleet came to town. The Great White Fleet was the popular nickname for the United States Navy battleships that completed a 15-month journey around the globe. It consisted of 16 battleships divided into 2 squadrons, along with various small escorts, and earned its nickname for the stark white paint of its hulls. The fleet's primary mission was to make friendly courtesy visits while displaying the new U.S. naval power to the world. It was by far the largest and most powerful fleet that had ever circled the globe. The mission was a success at home and in every port that was visited, including Sydney, Melbourne, and Albany. 34 years later, American sailors would again be welcomed in Australia. The arrival of the American submarines in Albany was a dramatic event in the small town of 4,000 people. The Albany Advertiser commented,
"Many of the visitors who have been here in our street recently must be almost fed up with being bailed up every few yards by mostly youngsters seeking autograph signatures, and worse still, asking for souvenirs. What the bigger girls and women do, well, that's their business."
However, a week later, the paper had a different opinion.
Of course it is for the young women of our town to extend a welcome to the gallant lads of the USA. But those very things we are fighting for, the sanctity of our homes and the purity and honour of our womenfolk, in the glamour of the moment and the newness of the situation, are likely to become sullied by the actions of the fickle-headed.
Of course, the influx of Americans was not limited just to submarine crew. Support personnel also made the move to Albany.
They lived on the base, which was on the other side of the harbour, but they became part of the Albany community during that period.
Of course, American sailors were popular in Australian port cities for other reasons.
They were well paid, they had a lot of money, and they were also very attractive through all of the reputations through movies and such like. So Australian girls were very much attracted to American servicemen because they could probably were a lot more interesting than the Australian counterparts. So there were several instances of brawls in Perth involving American servicemen. No such reports in Albany. They, I think, integrated pretty well.
And that integration would lead to romance, which brings us back to that football.
One of the machinists on the USS Holland, which was the submarine tender, was a man named Homer White. And he was one of those who married a young lady from the area, a young lady named Ethel Hassel. And she was from a very prominent Albany pastoralist and farming family, the Hassel family. They did go back to the States, and but then came back and resettled in Albany. Homer became a very prominent citizen in Albany and did a lot of work helping new migrants to Albany in the 50s and 60s. And Homer was also into history, and he actually donated an American football, which I believe he could have had when he was here with the USS Holland. Donated it as a memory of his time during the war.
And there is another modern and very musical link to the story of the Yanks in Albany. 18-year-old Bob Kane joined the U.S. Navy and had worked his way up to Chief Petty Officer on a submarine tender when, in 1944, he met a young woman from Wagin, Betty Denton. And Bob and Betty were married in Perth 3 months later. Their daughter, Susan, was born the following year. After the war, Bob returned to the States while Betty lived with her mother in Wagin. Some said Betty would never hear from Bob again.
A telegram arrived today. It's time to get to Monterey, 'cause the man I wed, he waits for me, and the daughter that is yet to see. The US Navy beamed its message, will deliver brides on a one-way passage. It made big news across the nation. The bridal train leaves from Perth Station. All the girls around Australia married to a Yankee sailor. Your fare is paid across the sea to the home of the brave and the land of the free. From west to east the young girls came, all aboard the bridal train. It was a farewell crossing of her land. She's gone to meet her sailor.